There are some moments in life that you never forget, not because they are grand or beautiful, but because they break something inside you. And you know, from that moment on, nothing will ever feel the same. For me, that moment came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in my small kitchen watching my 8-year-old daughter, Lily, color a picture of a house. She was humming a little song. Her hair was messy, her pajamas had little stars on them. She looked peaceful, innocent, like nothing in the world could ever hurt her. But I knew different, because I had just gotten off the phone with my own mother. Let me stop here and tell you something important. My mother and I never had a perfect relationship. She was always cold, distant. She loved control more than she loved people. But I always believed deep down that she had a heart, that she loved me, that she loved my daughter. I was wrong. The phone call started normal. She asked about work, about the weather. Then she said the words that still echo in my head every single night. She said, "I'm planning a big family gathering next month. Just the real family, immediate only, so don't bring Lily." I thought I misheard her. I said, "What do you mean? Lily is your granddaughter." And my mother laughed. She actually laughed. Then she said, "She's not really family, sweetheart. She's adopted. You know that. This is for blood relatives only." The phone felt heavy in my hand. My heart started pounding. I looked at Lily, who was still coloring, still humming, still trusting the world to be good to her. And I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because that's what I always did with my mother. I stayed quiet. I swallowed the pain. I told myself she didn't mean it, that she was just old-fashioned, that maybe I was overreacting. But this time was different. This time, she wasn't just hurting me. She was hurting my daughter. And that I could not forgive. I asked her, "Are you seriously telling me that my 8-year-old child is not welcome in your home because she doesn't share your DNA?" She said, "I'm just being honest. You wanted to adopt. That was your choice. But don't force the rest of us to pretend." I hung up, not because I was brave, but because I was about to say something I could never take back. And somewhere inside me, the old fear of losing my mother's approval was still fighting with the new fire that was growing in my chest. I sat at the table across from Lily. She looked up and smiled. "Mommy, why are you crying?" I didn't even realize I was crying. I wiped my face and said, "It's nothing, baby, just something in my eye." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying every conversation, every cold remark, every time my mother had made me feel small. And I asked myself a question that changed everything. Why do I keep letting her hurt us? The answer came slowly, painfully. Because I was scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of admitting that my own mother didn't love me the way a mother should. Scared of the fight that was coming. But the next morning, when Lily asked me, "Mommy, why doesn't Grandma want to see me?" I knew I couldn't be scared anymore because Lily had heard everything. She had been standing at the kitchen door the whole time. And that was the moment I stopped being a daughter who wanted her mother's love and became a mother who would burn the world down to protect her child. To understand what happened next, you need to know about the lake house. My father built it with his own hands. Every nail, every window, every wooden porch step. He started when I was 5 years old. I remember handing him tools and eating peanut butter sandwiches on the grass while he worked under the sun. That lake house wasn't just a building, it was his dream. His love letter to our family. He died when I was 23. Cancer. Fast and cruel. 6 months from diagnosis to goodbye. In his final weeks, he held my hand and said, "The lake house is yours. All yours. Don't let anyone take it from you." I didn't understand what he meant back then. I thought he was just being dramatic. But he knew something I didn't. He knew that after he was gone, my mother would try to control everything, and he wanted to make sure I had something of my own. Something she couldn't touch. He put it in his will, clear as day. The lake house goes to my daughter, Sarah, not to my wife, not to anyone else, to me. But here's the problem. My mother never accepted that. In her mind, the lake house was hers. She had lived there for 20 years. She had decorated it, hosted parties there, slept in the master bedroom. She acted like my father's will was a mistake, a technical error. She would say things like, "When I die, the lake house will go to you, Sarah. But until then, it's mine." And I let her believe that. Because I was young, because I was grieving, because I didn't want to fight. For 8 years, she lived in the lake house rent-free. She changed the locks. She redecorated. She even tried to sell it once, but the lawyer stopped her because the deed was in my name. She was furious, but she couldn't do anything about it, at least not legally. But she could make my life miserable, and she did. Every family dinner, every holiday, every phone call, she would remind me that I was a disappointment, that I wasn't the daughter she wanted, that adopting Lily was a mistake, that I should have had my own kids. Real kids. I took it all, like a sponge soaking up poison, because she was my mother and some part of me still hoped she would change. Then came the phone call about the family gathering, and Lily overhearing everything. That was the crack in the dam, the first tiny break that would soon become a flood. I called a lawyer the next day, a good one, expensive. I told him everything about the will, about my mother living in my house for 8 years, about the cruel things she said to my child. He listened quietly. Then he smiled. Not a happy smile, a knowing smile. He said, "Sarah, do you know what the law says about a property owner who has been wrongfully kept out of their own home?" I shook my head. He said, "It says you can claim back rent, 8 years of it, plus interest, plus damages. Your mother doesn't just owe you a house, she owes you a fortune." I sat in his office staring at the papers on his desk. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from anger, because for the first time, I realized that I had power, real power. And my mother had no idea. She thought she was in control. She thought she could say whatever she wanted, take whatever she wanted, hurt whoever she wanted. But she forgot one thing. The lake house was never hers, and now neither was my silence. Before I did anything legal, I decided to give my mother one last chance, one conversation, one opportunity to apologize to Lily and make things right. I know. You're probably thinking, why would you do that? After everything she said, after the way she treated your daughter. Because I'm human, and somewhere deep inside, the little girl who once loved her mommy was still hoping for a miracle. I wanted to believe that if I just explained how much she hurt us, she would see the pain, she would cry. She would hug Lily and say, "Sorry." I was a fool. I drove to the lake house on a Saturday morning. Lily was with a friend, so I was alone. The drive took 2 hours, 2 hours of practicing what I would say, 2 hours of trying to calm my racing heart. When I got there, my mother was sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee. She looked comfortable, relaxed, like a queen in her castle. She didn't even stand up when I walked up the steps. She said, "Oh, it's you. I thought you weren't coming to the family gathering." I took a deep breath. I said, "Mom, we need to talk about Lily." She rolled her eyes. "Not this again. I told you how I feel. She's not blood. End of story." I said, "She is my daughter and you are her grandmother. Blood doesn't make a family. Love does." She laughed, that cold, sharp laugh. "You always were too soft. That's your problem, Sarah. You think love fixes everything. Well, let me tell you something. Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't inherit property. Love doesn't make someone family." I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't cry, not this time. I said, "I'm giving you one chance. Apologize to Lily. Treat her like your granddaughter, or there will be consequences." She leaned forward. Her eyes were ice. "Are you threatening me? In my own house?" I said, "That's the thing, Mom. It's not your house. It never was. Dad left it to me, and I have let you live here for 8 years out of respect. But respect goes both ways. You want to stay here, you will treat my daughter like family." She stood up. Her face was red. "Get out. Get off my property before I call the police." I did move. I looked her right in the eyes and said, "One more time. Apologize to Lily, or I will take everything." She picked up her phone. "I'm calling the police. You are trespassing." I turned around and walked away. Not because I was scared, because I was done. The little girl inside me who wanted her mother's love finally died on that porch, and in her place stood a woman who was ready for war. As I got into my car, I saw my mother standing at the top of the steps, arms crossed, smiling. She thought she had won. She thought I was just throwing a tantrum. She had no idea what was coming. That night, I sat down with my lawyer and laid out a plan. Not a cruel plan. Not a violent plan. But a legal, strategic, devastating plan. The kind that doesn't just take back what's yours. It makes the other person wish they had never crossed you. Here's what we did. First, we filed an eviction notice, not a letter. Not a warning. A legal eviction served by a sheriff in front of all her neighbors. The notice said she had 30 days to vacate the lake house, the property that she had lived in for 8 years, decorated, called her own. The property she had lied about, manipulated for, and tried to sell. But that was just the beginning. Second, we filed a claim for back rent, 8 years of fair market value for a 4-bedroom lake house, plus interest, plus legal fees. The total came to over $300,000. Third, we filed for emotional damages, not for me, for Lily. We documented every cruel comment, every exclusion, every time my mother had hurt my child. The lawyer said we had a strong case. My mother received the papers on a Tuesday. I know because my aunt called me, screaming, "What have you done? Your mother is hysterical. She says you're trying to steal her home." I said, "It was never her home. And this isn't stealing. This is justice." My aunt said, "She's your mother. You can't do this to family." I said, "Funny, she didn't think Lily was family, so I guess the rules don't apply to everyone equally." My aunt hung up. And then the phone started ringing. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, cousins, uncles, old family friends. Some of them were angry. Some were confused. A very few, said I was doing the right thing. But most of them said the same thing. "You're going to destroy your mother. Is that what you want?" And I asked myself that question, late at night when the house was quiet and Lily was asleep. Is this what I wanted? Did I really want to destroy my own mother? The answer surprised me. No, I didn't want to destroy her. I wanted her to understand. I wanted her to feel the same pain she had made my daughter feel. I wanted her to know what it was like to be told, "You are not family, you don't belong, you are less than." But the difference was, my mother had done it on purpose, over and over, for years. And I was done being the bigger person. I was done forgiving. I was done hoping she would change. Some people only learn when they lose everything. And I was about to teach my mother the most expensive lesson of her life. The 30 days after my mother received the eviction notice were absolute chaos. She hired a lawyer, a loud, aggressive man who specialized in family disputes. He sent me letters full of threats. He said I was being unreasonable. He said I was exploiting my father's death. He said no judge would evict an elderly woman from the home she had lived in for decades. My lawyer smiled when he read those letters. He said, "Let them talk. The law doesn't care about feelings. The deed is in your name. Your father's will is clear. She has no case." But my mother didn't rely only on lawyers. She launched a campaign against me. She called every relative. She posted on social media. She went to her church and told everyone that her daughter was trying to make her homeless. I became the villain, the ungrateful child, the monster who was kicking her own mother out of the family home. It hurt. I won't lie, seeing my own relatives turn against me, hearing the whispers at the grocery store, getting nasty messages from people I had known my whole life. But every time I felt like giving up, I looked at Lily, and I remembered. I remembered her crying when she realized her grandmother didn't love her. I remembered her asking, "Mommy, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't Grandma want me?" I remembered the way she stopped calling my mother Grandma and started calling her my father's mom. That broke me, and it also made me stronger. 3 weeks into the 30 days, something unexpected happened. My father's sister, my Aunt Marie, showed up at my door. She was my mother's biggest supporter at first. She had called me screaming after the eviction notice was served. But now she was standing on my porch with tears in her eyes. She said, I didn't know she called Lily not family. I didn't know she said those things. Your mother lied to me. She told me you were doing this because you wanted money. She never told me about the phone call, about the family gathering, about any of it. I invited her inside. We talked for 3 hours. I showed her text messages. I played her a recording of one of my mother's voicemails. I told her about the years of small cruelties that I had never shared with anyone. Aunt Marie cried. Then she got angry. Then she said something that changed the whole game. She said, "Your mother has been hiding something about the lake house, something your father told me before he died. But I never believed." My heart stopped. "What is it?" Aunt Marie said, "Your mother tried to sell the lake house 5 years ago. She found a buyer. Cash, $300,000. The deal fell through because the lawyer stopped it. But she had already taken a deposit, $20,000. She spent it, and she never told anyone. I felt the floor drop beneath me. $20,000. My mother had tried to sell my house, and when she couldn't, She just kept the money anyway. I looked at Aunt Marie and said, "Do you have proof?" She nodded. I was the one who introduced her to the buyer. I have emails, bank statements, everything. That night, I called my lawyer and told him everything. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Sarah, this isn't just a civil case anymore. This is fraud. This is theft. This is criminal." I said, "I don't want to send my mother to jail." He said, "You might not have a choice. She committed a crime. The buyer could press charges. The state could press charges. All I can do is use this information to give you leverage." Leverage, that word echoed in my head. For so long, my mother had all the power. She controlled the family. She controlled the narrative. She controlled my emotions. But now, the tables had turned. And she didn't even know it yet. The court date came faster than anyone expected. My mother's lawyer tried to delay it, but the judge said no. The case was clear. The evidence was overwhelming, and my mother had made one critical mistake. She had refused to leave. 27 days after the eviction notice, she was still in the lake house. She had changed the locks again. She had put up cameras. She had even asked her church friends to camp out on the lawn to protest. It was a circus. Local news picked up the story. Grandmother fights eviction from family lake house. They made her look like a victim. They made me look like a villain. But I didn't care anymore because I knew the truth. And soon, everyone else would too. The morning of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse with my lawyer, my Aunt Marie, and a folder full of evidence. My mother was already there, sitting in the front row, surrounded by her supporters. She looked at me with pure hatred. She whispered, "You will regret this, Sarah. I will make sure you never see another family gathering again." I didn't respond. I just walked to my seat and sat down. The judge called the case. My lawyer presented the deed, my father's will, and the eviction notice, open and shut. My mother's lawyer tried to argue that she had adverse possession, a law that says if you live somewhere long enough, you can claim ownership. But the judge shook his head. Adverse possession requires the occupant to be there without permission. Your client was given permission by her daughter, permission that has now been revoked. The case is clear. The daughter owns the property. The mother must vacate. My mother stood up. "This is ridiculous. I raised her, I gave her everything, and this is how she repays me?" The judge banged his gavel. "Sit down, ma'am, or I will hold you in contempt." But my mother wouldn't sit. She turned to me, her face twisted with rage, and shouted, "You are dead to me. Do you hear me? Dead. That little adopted brat of yours destroyed this family." The courtroom went silent. Everyone heard it, the judge, the lawyers, the reporters, my mother's own supporters. She had said it out loud, in public, on the record. That little adopted brat. My lawyer stood up calmly and said, "Your Honor, we would like to amend our claim to include emotional damages for the minor child, who was present when these comments were made in the past and is now being subjected to public humiliation by the defendant." The judge looked at my mother with something I had never seen before, disgust. He said, "Madam, you have 30 minutes to remove your personal belongings from that property. If you are not out by then, the sheriff will remove you, and I am awarding the plaintiff all court costs, legal fees, and an additional $50,000 in emotional damages for the child." My mother's face went white. $50,000, plus back rent, plus legal fees. She owed me over $400,000. And she had 29 minutes to pack. That afternoon, I walked into the lake house for the first time as its rightful owner. My mother was gone, her furniture was gone, her decorations were gone. All that remained were the walls my father had built, the floors he had sanded, and the memories he had left behind. Lily was with me. She held my hand as we walked from room to room. She looked at the lake through the big window. She touched the fireplace where my father used to read her stories when she was a baby. She said, "Mommy, is this really our house now?" I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. "Yes, baby, this is our house and no one will ever take it from us." She smiled, that big, honest, innocent smile that reminded me why I had fought so hard. She ran to the window and pressed her face against the glass. "Can we get a boat? Can I have a pink room? Can we have sleepovers here?" I laughed. For the first time in months, I really laughed. Yes. Yes to everything. That night, Lily and I slept in the lake house for the first time. We made a blanket fort in the living room. We ate popcorn and watched cartoons, and when Lily fell asleep, I walked out onto the porch and looked at the stars. I thought about my father, about the way he believed in me when no one else did. about the way he built this house with his own hands because he wanted a place where his family would always be safe. He would have loved Lily. He would have called her his granddaughter without a second thought. He would have been proud of me for standing up to my mother, not because he wanted revenge, but because he wanted me to be strong. And I was strong. Finally. I didn't answer my mother's calls after that. She tried. Dozens of times. She left voicemails crying, apologizing, begging. She said she didn't mean it. She said she was just stressed. She said she would change. But I had heard it all before, and I knew the truth. Some people don't change because they're sorry. They change because they lost. And the moment they win again, they go right back to the way they were. I wasn't going to give her that chance, not anymore. The lake house became our home. Lily got her pink room. We got a small boat. We had sleepovers with her friends. We made new memories in the place where my father's love still lived in every wall, every floorboard, every window. And my mother. She moved into a small apartment in the next town. She told everyone I stole her home, but fewer people believed her now, because the truth had come out. The recording of her shouting in the courtroom, the text messages, the emails about the $20,000. She had destroyed her own reputation. I just gave her the rope, and she had 29 minutes to pack. That afternoon, I walked into the lake house for the first time as its rightful owner. My mother was gone, her furniture was gone, her decorations were gone. All that remained were the walls my father had built, the floors he had sanded, and the memories he had left behind. Lily was with me. She held my hand as we walked from room to room. She looked at the lake through the big window. She touched the fireplace where my father used to read her stories when she was a baby. She said, "Mommy, is this really our house now?" I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. "Yes, baby, this is our house and no one will ever take it from us." She smiled. That big, honest, innocent smile that reminded me why I had fought so hard. She ran to the window and pressed her face against the glass. "Can we get a boat? Can I have a pink room? Can we have sleepovers here?" I laughed. For the first time in months, I really laughed. Yes. Yes to everything. That night, Lily and I slept in the lake house for the first time. We made a blanket fort in the living room. We ate popcorn and watched cartoons, and when Lily fell asleep, I walked out onto the porch and looked at the stars. I thought about my father, about the way he believed in me when no one else did, about the way he built this house with his own hands because he wanted a place where his family would always be safe. He would have loved Lily. He would have called her his granddaughter without a second thought. He would have been proud of me for standing up to my mother, not because he wanted revenge, but because he wanted me to be strong. And I was strong. Finally. I didn't answer my mother's calls after that. She tried. Dozens of times. She left voicemails crying, apologizing, begging. She said she didn't mean it. She said she was just stressed. She said she would change. But I had heard it all before, and I knew the truth. Some people don't change because they're sorry. They change because they lost. And the moment they win again, they go right back to the way they were. I wasn't going to give her that chance, not anymore. The lake house became our home. Lily got her pink room. We got a small boat. We had sleepovers with her friends. We made new memories in the place where my father's love still lived in every wall, every floorboard, every window. And my mother. She moved into a small apartment in the next town. She told everyone I stole her home, but fewer people believed her now, because the truth had come out. The recording of her shouting in the courtroom, the text messages, the emails about the $20,000. She had destroyed her own reputation. I just gave her the rope. It has been 2 years since that day in the courtroom. Lily is 10 now. She is smart and kind and fierce. She knows what happened. I never hid it from her. I wanted her to understand that standing up for yourself is not wrong, that protecting the people you love is not selfish, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from someone who hurts you. She still doesn't see my mother. She doesn't ask about her anymore. She has other grandparents now, friends of mine who love her like their own, people who chose her, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And that is the truth I want to leave with you. Family is not about blood. It is not about DNA. It is not about tradition or obligation or guilt. Family is about who shows up, who loves you when you are difficult, who stands beside you when the world turns against you, who sees you, really sees you, and chooses you anyway. My mother chose control. She chose appearances. She chose her own pride over her own granddaughter. And in the end, she lost everything, not because I was cruel, but because I finally refused to be weak. If you're watching this and you are in a situation where someone is hurting you, or your child, or someone you love, please hear me. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to fight back. You are allowed to take what is yours and protect what matters. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to destroy them. But you do have to choose yourself, because no one else will. My father left me the lake house, but he also left me something more important. He left me the courage to fight for my family, and now that lake house belongs to Lily. Not because of a will, not because of a court order, but because love is the only thing that ever really owns anything. And my mother, she learned that lesson too late. But that is not my burden to carry anymore. The lake house is quiet tonight. Lily is asleep in her pink room. The lake is dark and still, and I am sitting on the porch where my father used to sit, watching the stars, feeling something I haven't felt in a very long time. Peace. Because justice doesn't always come in the form of revenge. Sometimes it comes in the form of a little girl who finally feels safe, a grandmother who finally understands the weight of her words, and a daughter who finally stopped being afraid. That is the real victory. Not the house, not the money, but the freedom to love without fear. And that, my friend, is something no one can ever take from you.